The chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, says the commission is leaving no stone unturned in the prosecution of sexual offenders in tertiary institutions. He also says the ICPC is partnering the Federal Ministry of Education, the UNFPA, and other agencies to make this happen. Arise News correspondent Mary Chinda tells us more.
A survey, according to the World Bank, done in 2018, reveals that 70% of female graduates from Nigerian tertiary institutions have been sexually harassed. This is the essence of the national stakeholders engagement championed by the ICPC and Gender Mobile, as well as Ford Foundation.
Sexual harassment. This malady has over the years been found as a form of corruption. It's become quite common for teaching and non-teaching staff to demand or expect sexual gratification from students to whom they are supposed to serve as parents.
The task before these stakeholders is to come up with the model policies on sexual harassment across educational institutions in the country to protect students from predating lecturers or classmates. As the ICPC says, it is handling at least 17 recent reports relating to sexual offences.
Our engagement today is to brainstorm and review the draft documents which ICPC and Gender Mobile have prepared.
Given that institutional demonstration of zero tolerance to sexual harassment is measured by the ability to take complaints seriously, sanction perpetrators, and protect victims from reprisals. This, of course, is contingent on the existence of comprehensive policies that provide definitional clarity, stipulates grievance redress mechanisms, and put survivors at the center of prevention and response effort, and most importantly, guarantee the physical and academic security of victims, survivors, and targets.
Beyond this piece of effort that you see here today, we're hoping that this would translate into safe education transmittal spaces to the point that institutions of higher learning would allocate resources within their budget to the implementation of these model policies.
With an increasing number of students experiencing both verbal and non-verbal forms of sexual harassment, away from sensitization, experts here agree that the anti-sexual harassment model policy, when formally launched, would bring perpetrators to book. Mary Chinda, Arise News.
Well, for more on this, Omawumi Ogunrotimi, the Executive Director, Gender Mobile Initiative, joins us now in the studio. Thanks so much for being on the news tonight.
Good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Before we talk about the model policy, you talked about seriousness earlier in the day at that event, and I just wanted to ask you, just how serious are we as a society in securing the safety of our girl child, particularly? How serious do you think we are?
So I think we can be more serious than we are now, actually, Everything points to the fact that to some extent we're paying some kind of lip service, to guaranteeing or preserving the physical security, the mental security, the economic security of the girl child, and of course women.
And at that event, 70%, that's huge. 70% of females in Nigerian universities have actually been, at one time or the other, been sexually harassed. That is unbelievable. But how has the culture of silence further fueled this, what apparently is a menace?
So
and what exactly needs to be done to encourage these victims to speak out?
So I would say that there is a reciprocal relationship between the culture of silence and the prevalence of sexual and gender-based violence. So when there is some silence that engulfs such crime in that space that is characterized by power asymmetry. So when you look at the environment of learning and you see that the lecturer maybe harasses a student, because that person has the grading power, because that person has some power that could actually impact on your educational outcomes, you think about the consequences of not saying yes, and then you give in to such demand and you keep quiet about it, and that emboldens the perpetrator. As a matter of fact, there is a growing body of research that suggests that 80% of perpetrators are repeat offenders. So why do we have 80% as repeat offenders? It's because people are not speaking out about these things. Then when you think about how we can break the culture of silence, it's quite simple. When the political will is there, it's visible for people to see. When there is institutional accountability, and it starts from putting the right policies in place. It starts from putting, survivor-centered reporting mechanisms. When I know that when I report a case that my institution would take it on and ensure that I get justice, why not? I would report. And when a potential perpetrator also sees that the institution is committed to this, it would deter, further commission of such crime.
From your findings, do you think institutions themselves are they, stepping up to the plate to actually prevent this?
Or are they culpable?
Are they culpable, exactly?
So I think it's a blend of both. So we have, I wouldn't want to generalize, because we have some fine institutions in Nigeria that are taking the bull by the horn. So University of Abuja comes to mind when I think about institutions of higher learning that are really addressing this issue headlong. You see that they are putting policies in place, and they are actually also allocating resources to see that those policies are implemented. Ekiti State universities in Ekiti State, for example, they are also kind of adopting model policies to address sexual harassment. But when you think about it holistically, we also have institutions where there is institutional complacency, there is institutional betrayal, and there's institutional neglect. And when you have all of this, what it does is that it actually further encourages people to commit the crime and then suppresses the voices, the agency of target survivor victims.
Yeah, so I hear you talk about breaking the culture of silence. So when we're doing that, we also have to think about access to assistance, protection, but there's a leg we don't talk so much about.
Enough about
justice.
Right.
How bad are we when it comes to justice, and how important, how significant is that in fighting this menace you talk about?
So it's really important that we also look at the concept of justice holistically. We shouldn't narrow the concept of justice to just securing conviction. I would say that for people who have experienced sexual and gender-based violence, they have a vision of what justice looks like for them. For some people, justice means voice. For some people, it means empowerment. For some people, it means agency. For some people, it means recognition. For some people, it means citizenship. So we need to think more broadly about what justice means. So when we look at, the whole spectrum of what justice means, also trying to fit it within the experience of the person who has that lived experience, then we begin to also program around that. So when we have reporting mechanisms, when we have platforms where people can access a range of services, that when I've experienced abuse, the mere fact that I can actually walk up to a facility, report the case, access the support that I want, and even the institution coming out to condemn such acts, and also recognizing that I have my right, I should have my agency as an individual.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering what safeguards institutions can put in place. And I was actually going to ask, what would justice look like for, victims? And you have just reeled that out. But are the laws themselves, are the laws against sexual harassment, are they even strong enough? Are they stringent enough? What do we need to do to fix it at that level?
So I would say that the events that happened today, the development of the model policy, is happening on the strength of the existing gap in terms of, laws that address sexual harassment. And we are all aware of the bill that spanned 5-6 years at the National Assembly. That's the anti-sexual harassment bill in, tertiary education institutions. And of course, there is also no specific criminal law that targets sexual harassment. We have state laws, and of course, that has territorial limitation. The criminal law of Lagos State, I think Section 287, criminalizes sexual harassment. If you're indicted, I think that you're liable to 3 years imprisonment. The VAP law is, the VAP Act is quite silent on sexual harassment. So we're prioritizing sexual harassment to say it goes beyond just having just one particular section and subsection. We need comprehensive laws and policies, and that's why we're doing this, to ensure also that the people that will be bound by these policies are part of the process. People who are directly affected by the structural barriers and inequity are part of the process.
We cannot let you go without talking about the model policy. What exactly will this be, or what is it?
Yeah, so the model policy is a template to guide institutions of higher learning to adopt and then further adapt. Right. So when these model policies are adopted by them, they then still have to look at it, ensure that it reflects their local realities. Think about every constituent on campus, from persons living with disability to the groupings of young people, the student associations, you know, to the non-academic, the academic staff, and even visitors coming to the campus community. Ensure that this actually reflects their unique needs, their unique yearnings, and their unique aspirations.
Do we even know what harassment is?
Exactly.
What's the definition of harassment?
Yeah.
Because when you go, I mean, we've all passed through the university system. Right. What exactly is harassment? Do we know? Do we understand?
Of course, it's a sexual misbehavior. The conduct has to be sexual in nature, and we have two classes of harassment. We have the quid pro quo, and then we have the hostile environment. Quid pro quo is this for that. So when you say that you have to,
like,
you know,
this
is
what
exactly, yeah, sex for grades, yeah. So and then the hostile environment, that one is kind of mild. It happens in a way that it's even always difficult for people to prove that it has happened. When you catcall people, such that the environment becomes hostile for them. Right. When you grope people, when you stalk them, now that's not this for that, but that's you make the environment hostile for them.
Very hostile. Yeah. Omawumi Ogunrotimi, Executive Director, Gender Mobile Initiative. Thank you so much for joining us on News.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And keep doing what you do.